There was a time in my life where I genuinely believed that if I just tried harder, things would finally change inside me. If I prayed more intentionally, reflected more deeply, and became more disciplined or more focused, then eventually I would break through whatever was keeping me stuck. For a while, that approach felt right. It felt responsible. It didn't feel like I was doing anything wrong. It felt like I was doing exactly what I was supposed to do. But over time, something started to feel off. Because the more I tried, the more aware I became of what wasn't changing. I'm a professional Christian coach, and I work with women who love God deeply, but still feel stuck in ways they don't fully understand. The same striving kept resurfacing, the same inner pressure kept returning. The same gap between what I know and how I was living out what I know was still there. It was like I could see the pattern, but I couldn't get out of it. And instead of feeling free, I started to feel more frustrated. Not just stuck, but confused about why I was still stuck. I also wasn't avoiding growth. In fact, I was actively trying to grow in Christ. But if effort is supposed to lead to growth, why does trying harder sometimes make you feel even more stuck? Here's what I eventually began to understand. It wasn't that truth was absent from my life. It was that I was still trying to live that truth through self-effort. I was trying to live out that truth through distorted assumptions about what faithfulness was supposed to look like. Effort by itself doesn't create transformation. You can put in a lot of effort and still stay in the same place, especially when that effort is coming from self-reliance instead of resting in Christ. It's not that you're unwilling to change. It's that something deeper is still driving you. And if you haven't figured out what that is, you'll keep trying harder rather than bringing it honestly before God. So instead of moving forward, you're just pushing and pushing and pushing. This shows up in subtle ways. You notice something in yourself that you want to change, so you try to correct it. You tell yourself to think differently, respond differently, and do better next time. But when the situation comes up again, you react the same way and feel frustrated with yourself for not changing. It's kind of like what Paul talks about in Romans 7:19. For the good that I want, I do not do, but I practice the very evil that I do not want. Or you spend time reflecting and trying to figure out what's going on, but instead of things becoming clearer, you just keep thinking about the same things in slightly different ways. Just a quick pause. If something here has stirred something in you, don't ignore that. The link in the description below is a great next step, and I'd love to hear from you. Now, let's continue. Or you feel like you should be further along by now because of all the effort you put in, which only adds to the frustration. And without realizing it, growth starts to feel like something you have to force. Like if you just push a little harder, something will finally change. But here's the deeper shift. Trying harder keeps you focused on managing your behavior. But real transformation happens when you begin to understand what's driving that behavior in the first place. When what's underneath it is finally brought to light, something begins to shift more truthfully. But when you can't see yet what's driving you, effort just turns into more pressure. And this is something I've also seen in women who are deeply committed to their faith. They're not passive. They're not avoiding growth. They deeply care about becoming who God is calling them to be. But somewhere along the way, growth became something they have to bear on their own shoulders instead of something they learn to walk in. So instead of experiencing freedom, they experience pressure. Pressure to change, pressure to improve. and pressure to get it right. And that pressure keeps them in the same cycle they're trying to get out of. This becomes exhausting, but it's also where something begins to shift. Not when you try harder, but when you slow down enough to actually see what's happening inside. Because clarity doesn't come from pushing yourself more. It comes from finally being able to see what's already there. And when you can see clearly what's been driving you, you can begin to respond differently. Not through striving, but through truth. That's a very different way of living. So if you've been trying hard, putting in effort, and still feeling stuck, pause and ask yourself this. Am I trying to force change, or am I actually understanding what's going on inside? Because those lead to very different outcomes. He is before all things, and in him all things hold together. Colossians 1:17. If you've ever felt like your relationship with God has slowly become something you manage instead of something you can actually rest in, I want you to watch this next video where I share a simple shift that helped me to move from striving to actually resting in Him. When Christ is truly at the center, everything else finally finds its place in Him.